Warning. This video contains graphic content not meant for young viewers. Viewers' discretion is advised. You have been warned. The glow that had once completely lit the entire place had now been completely absorbed by the shadow being, and I was once again plunged into darkness. The silence rung in my ears with a static buzz, and I tensed in apprehension as to what would happen next. Then after some time, my vision once again returned to me as light refilled this palace of torture. This time, however, the light was radiating from this thing that had finally come into complete existence. It was as if every form of light and shadow around us had been focused into this being and had somehow been fused into one enormous dark light. I know that sounds impossible, but that's just what it was. Dark light. It continued to pulse with its demonic power, and I cringed at its outward appearance. Behind the dark light that it casted was a hideous body. Its bones, if that's what they even were, had been forced out of its skin at the spine. Shoulders and elbows had jutted out at uneven angles. Dark blood dripped off the tips and landed with a little splash on the ground. It hunched over as if in pain, and I noticed that it didn't have any hands. That sharp quality to its upper limbs I mentioned earlier. The reason for that was because it didn't have any real upper limbs. Where they should have been were large, cracked pieces of bone that extended out and formed sharp points at the end. They were also throbbing, but not in time with the rest of this thing's body. It was as if they were in control of them. What I mean is, they looked almost sentient. Its face was contorted into a sick and twisted grin that stretched all the way across its jaw, revealing a set of very wicked, very sharp-looking teeth that had been chipped and broken in places. There was blood staining every one. A pair of jagged horns stuck out from its head at weird angles, and there were giant splits all over them. Some of them ran from the base all the way to the very tip. It also dragged itself closer to where the girl was anchored. Walking isn't the right word. Its deformed legs were sliding spastically across the ground, and it practically had to fight with them to stay upright. Once it became within touching distance of the girl, it gave an enormous bellow, and the girl screamed with fear and began throwing her weight around again, trying to break free. The creature before her then began moving with extreme speed, and soon it became only a blur before me. The girl's screams became sputtered, gagging sounds, similar to the one I heard on the surface, and her eyes rolled back into her head, exposing the whites of her eyes. I watched in awe and disgust as blood began frothing from her mouth, and as her abdomen was ripped open, her organs receiving the same treatment as the incompletes. She gargled and hacked for ages as this being went to its demented work, moving with increasing speed. Pieces of flesh flew all over the place. From her tattered body, and her stomach was somehow being filled before my eyes, making gurgling sounds that rose in pitch the more that was poured in. I threw up all over my chest. It was just too much. I looked away until the gargling stopped. But a part of me wanted to turn back around, and I had to focus with all my might to stop myself. When the girl finally stopped making sounds, I looked back and almost threw up again. Her stomach was filled with her own flesh and bones. I could see parts of kidneys, liver, pancreas, and gallbladder all floating around from the semi-translucent exterior of the stomach as it churned and rumbled. I saw her insides being mixed with her stomach acid, and she moaned in pain and exhaustion from the loss of blood. Her stomach looked like it was going to burst. The rest of her digestive system had already turned black. I had no idea why, though. Perhaps it was some strange side effect of the demon coming into contact with them. Who knows? The twisted creature had gone now, and the light had returned to the chamber. The incomplete were screaming again, but the girl remained silent, just lolling her head from side to side. She had a look of disbelief on her face as she stared at her own organs hanging down, just barely touching the floor. I could only imagine. I suddenly felt extremely worried. In fact, I was going fucking crazy. I began breathing faster and faster, and I kept asking myself, what was going to happen to me? Would I suffer the same fate as that girl? How painful would it be? How long would I stay alive? Would it be forever? I tried to calm myself down and control my breathing, but I couldn't. I just couldn't. I drew in a deep breath, focused on my vocal cords, and began mimicking the incomplete. I screamed. Ayo, yeah, this part was probably a little longer than the other few, but not as long as the first. Yeah, kinda disappointing. But hey, story's getting interesting, huh? Now we know what this creature is. Best way to figure out what happens to our protagonist is check out the upcoming episode that's gonna be posted next week. In the meantime, why not check out my channel or subscribe to get notified? You could also go over to other parts of the internet where my videos are popping up, like my gaming channel with awkward gameplays. Yeah. Anyway, thank you so much for watching. This was Explicit Censor. Bye.